There's three lies that Republicans are using to avoid admitting that they plan to ban abortion. Now, now the Republicans, they pretend to be pro-choice by giving the choice to Republican state legislators, but not the pregnant women. Now, for decades now, Republicans have been running on an anti-abortion platform. Much to the dismay of feminists, it seems to have done little to discourage voters from turning out for them. Um, it's no wonder then that the Republicans began to believe that voters either agreed with their anti-choice views or they weren't really bothered by it. But back in June, the Supreme Court had overturned Roe v. Wade, opening the door to a stampede of Republican-controlled state legislators banning abortion. Now, the result is a widespread backlash that made it quite clear that no, actually, the public does not support abortion bans. Instead, it seems that voters had spent years dismissing the Republican anti-choice views as empty gestures to placate the religious right and not the action plans. The idea that right-wing radicalism is just talk strikes again. Now the public understands that Republicans are dead serious about banning abortion. Abortion already has been banned in 13 states and banned at 6 weeks, which may as well be a total ban in Georgia. But multiple other states have banned second trimester abortions, putting patients who don't discover fetal anomalies until that stage in crisis. Now, experts believe that soon abortion will be banned in half the states. And for that political prospect, however, the Republican politicians would very much like to return to the before times when voters believed that all this pro-life talk was meaningless noise and not a concrete plan to dismantle reproductive rights. The rhetoric deployed to prop up this illusion has gone well beyond the typical verbal embroidery that politicians employ. Instead, it can be characterized as outright dishonesty, meant to trick voters into giving up their own rights. And here's the three biggest talking points that Republican politicians are using to distract from their true views on abortion access and why folks should not fall for it. Now, number one, I'm only trying to stop all these imaginary nine-month abortions. Dr. Oz, the GOP candidate for Senate in Pennsylvania, falsely claimed Tuesday that his Democratic opponent, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table. Now, Monday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis accused his opponent of supporting abortion until the moment of birth. And Donald Trump took it to the next level, routinely claiming women go through the entire birth process just so the doctor can execute the baby in the delivery room, which is a lie because none of that shit has ever happened. But when Dr. Mira Shaw was talking, she's a family physician who provides abortions in New York, and she basically said that Dr. Oz suggested patients get abortions at 38 weeks, and she was outraged. That is something that just does not happen. She said, labor can be induced at that stage, she noted, but abortion at that stage doesn't even make sense. As she knows, 38 weeks is a full term. You don't abort a pregnancy that is complete. It's literally a non sequitur. And Oz doesn't seem to know anything about this work. Shaw said he's never practiced sexual or reproductive health. Instead, he's just disseminating falsehoods to create divisiveness among the people. Now, even on its face, this talking point is nonsensical. No proposed bans are limited to 38 or even 32 weeks. States are banning abortion entirely or at much earlier points in a pregnancy. And invoking an imaginary 38-week abortion to justify these bans is like banning all cars from the road to prevent hypothetical drivers from going 200 in a school zone, because that's just not literally possible to do that. This nonsensical talking point also dehumanizes women by ascribing barbaric behavior to them, and talking about it in such a way is so disrespectful, and it's considered disinformation. Number two, banning abortion is about kicking politicians out of your doctor's office. Now, Dr. Oz, again, in the same Tuesday debate, had argued that there should not be involvement from the federal government, and that it's a decision between women, doctors, and local political leaders. And during the Kansas referendum on abortion rights, anti-choice ads routinely characterized a vote to ban abortion as somehow protecting choice because it leaves the choice to state legislators, and it's not their choice to decide what a woman gets or what she doesn't get. Now, these talking points are an obvious attempt to confuse voters with language that sounds pro-choice and hoodwinking voters into thinking that the politician does not support a ban. But of course, there is nothing pro-choice about any of this. Now, given the decision-making power to GOP-controlled state legislators, it's not, in fact, leaving the choice to women and their doctors. We know this because more than a dozen of those states have banned abortion already, and for the patient denied an abortion, it hardly matters if it's state or federal politician who took this basic right away. Now, in addition to deliberately trying to confuse voters, they leave the choice to the state's talking points is about trying to soothe women into believing that they will still have access to have access basically simply by traveling to another state. But over 800,000 abortions are performed every year in the U.S. If the number of providers is drastically slashed, the remaining clinics could be too overwhelmed to help everyone who needs their services. Now, the last one, number 3. I totally support exceptions that you or your daughter would totally be able to get. Now, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin claims to support exceptions to abortion restrictions in the case of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. Despite claiming to believe abortion is murder, says that he's fine with rape exceptions. Now, Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina says a pregnant rape victim should make that decision with her doctor, which is true, they should. Now, as with the leave it to the state's talking point, the constant chatter about exceptions is meant to lull people into believing that they personally will always have access, even if other supposedly less deserving people are cut off. Now, in reality, as feminist writer Jessica Valenti wrote in a recent newsletter, exceptions to abortion bans are exceptions in name only. Now, in Mississippi, for example, doctors are too afraid of the vague law and harsh legal consequences to provide victims with abortion at all. Now, Mississippi Today launched an investigation, and they couldn't find one doctor in the whole state willing to give a rape victim an abortion. Now, similarly, the life of the mother exceptions that may sound reassuring on paper are a nightmare in practice. Now, in Texas, patients are being forced to wait until miscarriages go septic before they're allowed to terminate. In cases of fetal anomaly, patients are being told that they have to wait until the full term to give birth to babies who will die upon delivery. Now, basically, they said I had to carry. One patient said they had to carry their baby to bury it because the baby was dead. Now, this exceptions talk is misleading on a deeper and a harder to measure level as well. Now, polling shows that large numbers of Americans want abortion to be legal for the right reasons, but not for the wrong ones. What that means in practice is, as abortion clinic workers have long darkly joked, it's the only moral abortion. The only moral abortion is my abortion, which is to say, people tend to view their own reasons for doing something sympathetically, but they assume other people have less honorable impulses for their choices, and this is known as the fundamental attribution error. Now the talk of exceptions allows some voters to falsely believe that they and theirs will always be safe, while other people with bad reasons will not be. But as Valenti points out, doctors don't want to risk arrest in the first place, so they will almost always play it safe by offering no abortions at all, even if you could make the case abstractly for an abortion exception. But it doesn't matter if there's no provider willing to take that risk. And it remains to be seen if Republicans are fooling anyone with these talking points, which they probably are. Now voters are well aware of the partisan divide on this issue, and perhaps more than ever. Now, when abortion bans were purely hypothetical, the Republicans could get away with these word games, mostly because voters tuned it out entirely. Now that the bans are truly happening, there's a limit on how much lying and deflection will work from the Republicans. Now, the few elections that we have seen have shown that gaslighting rhetoric isn't fooling many voters. Now, the real test, however, is with a little less than 2 weeks to go, how many Americans will turn out for the midterm elections. Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. If you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just as little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.